Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Someone to Protect Me. This is part 3. Nedzu had to say the most difficult part about being in a new body wasn't the extreme height difference, nor was it the way Midoriya's mouth made speaking so much different from what he was used to. It wasn't even using fingers that had a lot more dexterity than his own paws were used to. No, it was getting used to the boy's quirk. He seemed to have some sort of vision enhancement quirk, letting Nedzu zoom in on whatever he was focusing on, as if he was using a pair of binoculars. He had examined his eyes in the bathroom mirror before he left the apartment for the day, but there was no visual evidence of any kind of quirk. This was likely a mutation, so the boy has probably had this vision his whole life. And after he made that realization, he noticed that he had never turned on a single light in the apartment, but could still see perfectly. So, some sort of dark vision as well. This at least explained how the drawings in the boy's room could be so detailed, especially for heroes like Shota-kun. The boy must have seen him in person, and with this quirk of his, could see him up close. All that to say, Nedzu had no issues at all seeing the 7 red spider lilies on the desk that was assigned to Midoriya Izuku, although he wished he hadn't seen them. Nedzu slowly walked to the desk, double-checking that this was truly the boy's desk, before he sat down. Is this why Izuku-kun had apologized for the day he was going to have? Ha! Did you see Deku's face? I knew if we put more than one flower, it'd hit him harder. A group of students on the other side of the room started giggling. Deku? As in useless? Nedzu could only assume they were talking about Izuku-kun, as the word Deku had been scratched into the desk a few times, along with other insults, such as null, geneless, and loser. But that didn't make much sense to him. Those slurs and insults were primarily used for the quirkless population, and Izuku-kun wasn't quirk. Wait. There was no physical indication to his vision quirk, even though it was a mutation. Did he think he was quirkless? That would explain a few of the questions Nedzu had, honestly. He had been wondering why a child this age would have so many scars. He knew the statistics, and these flowers showed that this poor boy was on his way to being just another addition to those statistics. Well, not if Nedzu had anything to say about it. Nedzu had been quiet all day, not sure how exactly Izuku-kun would have been acting, but that didn't prevent the teachers and other classmates from harassing him. One teacher had asked him a question regarding the schoolwork, and then accused him of cheating when he gave the correct answer. Nedzu was confused for a second. How could he have been cheating? But well, he wasn't actually Midoriya Izuku, so perhaps this is a question the boy wouldn't normally know the answer to. At least, that had been his thoughts until a test from the week prior was returned. The grade was a 56% with a comment, "No unevolved shit should be able to get even this high a grade." And when Nedzu looked at the answers, he saw that they were all correct. While all of those were enough alone to make his fur stand on end, if he had fur in this body, the real kicker had to be the bullying and lack of response from the teachers. Nedzu had been tripped, pushed, teased, taunted, his backpack emptied, an assignment ripped up, and a pencil snapped. All while still in class, with the teacher watching, and nothing was done to stop it. Nedzu flipped to a blank section in the notebook he was using to take Midoriya's school notes and decided he was going to start planning the destruction of this school. Because make no mistake, Nedzu was going to rain down hellfire on this school for their treatment of a student, and it didn't matter if they thought the boy was quirkless or not. There was no acceptable excuse for any of this. Just as he was getting to the second page in the notebook, he was rudely interrupted by someone snatching the notebook out from under his hands. "What kind of stupid stalker notes are you writing now, Deku?" a blonde kid asked. Nedzu was pretty sure that his name was Bakugo. The kid started reading the notes but couldn't make any sense of it, since it was all in code. "What kind of stupid language is this? That doesn't make any sense," he sneered. "Of course it doesn't make any sense to you. It isn't meant for you," Nedzu replied. "Don't you get snippy with me, Deku," the kid snarled at him as he shoved Nedzu to the floor. "You seem to have forgotten what your place is in this class. Maybe it's about time I show you again." The boy grinned darkly at Nedzu. Nedzu really shouldn't be surprised at this point to see that the teacher was in the classroom, holding a hand in front of their mouth to muffle their laughter. This was, after all, the third teacher today to not only tolerate, but find amusement in the torment that was being served to him. "Fucking answer me, Deku!" the blonde screamed at him as he punched him in the stomach. Nedzu was too busy coughing to make a reply, but that didn't stop the blonde from grabbing him by the hair and pulling him up. "Look here, you quirkless freak. It doesn't matter how many useless stalker notes you write, you'll never become a hero, and you'll never get into UA. You need a quirk to be able to make anything of yourself." Nedzu blinked up at him. Did Izuku-kun want to be a hero? From the notebooks he had read through this morning, he would have assumed the boy wanted to go into the field of analysis, but that level of analysis would definitely be a benefit for him, if heroics was his goal. As if he hadn't noticed Nedzu's thought tangent, Bakugo continued. "You know, I have some advice for you. If you really want a quirk so badly, you can take a swan dive off the roof and pray for a quirk in your next life." Everyone in the room had burst into laughter at that. "Ha! Good one, Bakugo!" Nedzu couldn't believe it. That had been said by the teacher. The students all filed out of the class after that, and Nedzu stiffly put everything back into the backpack he had been using, while his thoughts raced. How could anyone think this kind of treatment was okay? And how did the boy think that he'd ever manage to become a hero with an attitude like that? Well, there were heroes like that, he supposed, Endeavor and Death Arms to name just two of them. But the vast majority of heroes knew that you were supposed to help people, make them feel safe around you, not try to bait them into suicide. So lost in his thoughts, Nedzu had to let his awareness slip. In his defense, most of his situational awareness was dependent upon his superior hearing, which he didn't have currently, and was taken completely by surprise when one of the kids from earlier used his elongated fingers quirk to grab him and throw him into an open supply closet. The door was quickly slammed shut, locking him inside. "Have fun in there, Deku," the kid taunted as he walked away, leaving Nedzu to figure out how to escape. Nedzu closed his eyes in annoyance and just breathed. He'd gone through so much worse than this before, but that was at the hands of scientists who were determined to see just how far they could push him before he broke. This boy, though. Nedzu didn't want to know how far this boy had been pushed, if today's events were better or worse than he typically had to put up with. But it doesn't matter. This boy will not have to deal with this ever again. Nedzu silently promises that he will raze this school to the ground, get the teachers arrested, black marks put on the records of all of these delinquent students, maybe even some time in jail for the worst ones, like that Bakugo. Opening his eyes, and with a plan in mind, Nedzu started looking around the closet. His first order of business was going to be getting out of this closet. He didn't want to have to call Shota-kun just yet to get him out. Having a hero show up to free the school's quirkless student would give away too much of the plan. But if there wasn't anything in the closet Nedzu could use, he would. Fortunately, or unfortunately as the case may be, it seemed that Izuku-kun had been locked in this closet enough times to where he had created an emergency stash of sorts. Nedzu had located a few granola bars, 2 bottles of water, and a set of lockpicks. He smiled sadly as he picked up the lockpicks. The fact that this boy had felt the need to prepare for this situation showed Nedzu that Izuku-kun would make a fine hero, and that he had chosen to learn lockpicking. He would make a fantastic underground hero. Nedzu had read about the correct way to use lockpicks in the past, but never actually used them himself. His pause made the use of traditional lockpicks impossible, so it took him longer than he felt it should have to let himself out of the closet. He carefully put the lockpicks back where he had found them, and settled his backpack onto his shoulders, and made his way back to the apartment. Today had been very informative. Shota was glad he had left Midoriya with Hisashi after lunch, since word had apparently gotten around to the students that Shota had Nedzu with him for the classes. While no one had called him out on it, the atmosphere in the class had been extremely tense, with each student worried the rat was going to pop out of his scarf at any moment. It was only made worse when Shota took off his scarf, claiming he was a little warm. He was just barely able to contain his sadistic grin at his students, glancing in every direction, at every vent, even under a few desks, all looking for Nedzu. While it had been highly amusing for Shota, he was sure the kid would have been highly uncomfortable in the situation. He would have to figure out what to do for tomorrow, assuming the kid was still in the wrong body. "We're going to stop at the rat's apartment to pick up some things for you," Shota said casually to the kid while he was once again riding on Shota's shoulder. "We're going to pick up some clothes for tomorrow, as well as some sleep clothes and his toothbrush and toothpaste." Midoriya nodded at him, and said in a much clearer voice from earlier, "Okay." Shota reached up and pet the kid's head a few times, and then asked, How did you manage with Izashi?" Midoriya had been leaning into Shota's hand, so it took a moment for him to realize he had been asked a question. "Oh, it was fine. He helped me a lot. I do stutter a lot normally, though," he amended. "I can tell there's a huge difference," Shota encouraged and gave the kid a smile. "Maybe with a little more one-on-one time with Izashi, you'll even manage to reduce that part of your stutter." "Maybe," he agreed, nodding his head. As if a stray thought hit the kid, he suddenly ducked his head and burrowed into Shota's scarf again. That is, if he would want to spend more time with me." This kid. This damn kid. He needs to spend so much more time with Zashi, and Shota needs to spend some quality time with whoever decided to give this kid such low self-esteem. "Kid, I can promise you this now. Izashi adores you, and would gladly spend all the time in the world with you." Midoriya poked his head out from under his scarf. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," Shota replied without a hint of hesitance. "Now, let's get you some clothes." They had arrived at Nedzu's apartment, and Shota entered his code to let them inside. Today had been the weirdest day of Izuku's life, like ever. And the weirdest part wasn't even waking up in the body of Nedzu. No, it was spending the whole day with two of his favorite heroes, Eraserhead and Present Mike, and now he was going to be going home with them. Well, with Aizawa. He was pretty sure he lived with Yamada, though, probably married to him, actually. Izuku had spent the whole morning super close to Aizawa, and he knew that he had become familiar to his scent. But when he had left at the end of lunch, he could swear he still smelled him on Yamada. And he knew Yamada was married since he spoke about his spouse a few times over the years on his radio show, so either he was married to Aizawa, or they were having an affair. Those were the only conclusions Izuku could come up with. But anyways, they both seemed to like him. Granted, they didn't know he was quirkless yet, so that was sure to change. Wait, they didn't know, right? Nedzu was sure to have realized by now that Izuku was quirkless. Wouldn't he have told Aizawa by now? So why was he still being so nice to him? Aizawa had tried to get Izuku's input on the clothes he was going to be wearing tonight and tomorrow. But Izuku had been so lost in thought, he didn't even really pay any attention, just pointed. He hoped what he pointed to didn't look too bad. "Question for you, kid," Aizawa asked suddenly, as they were going up the stairs to his apartment. "How do you feel about cats?" Izuku tilted his head. That was not what he was expecting. "Cats?" "Mm-hmm. Small, furry, adorable little bastards. I've got 2 of them," he admitted with a grin. "I forgot to mention them earlier, but their names are Shiro and Kuro. I'm sure you'll be able to figure out which is which." White and black? Who names their cats white and black? Aizawa, apparently, Izuku thought to himself with a giggle. Shota breathed out a little sigh of relief when he heard the kid's giggles. Midoriya had fallen quiet on the way to the rat's home, and he was worried about him. Had he done or said something to put the kid off? But talking about his furry bastards always worked. He was curious if Midoriya would be able to figure out which cat was which. To date, no one had ever been able to figure out which cat was which when they first met them, not even Hisashi or Nedzu. Shota pulled his keys out of his pocket and unlocked the door. "Here we are, kid." He reached up to help the kid off of his shoulder and closed the door with his foot. "Not sure where the furry bastards are, but they'll probably find us as I show you around." Midoriya followed him to the guest room, where they both quickly realized that the bed was a little too high for him. "Huh," Shota muttered. "Well, I guess we can bring in a chair or something to help you get up there. Wait here, I'll grab something." When the kid nodded, Shota left the room in search of a stool. He knew they had one. Hisashi kept a slow cooker on top of the cupboards in the kitchen for a special hot chocolate he liked to make in the winter, but Shota had no idea where the stool was. He had been searching for almost 5 minutes when he finally gave up and called Hisashi, who sent him to voicemail. A few seconds later, though, he sent him a text saying he's in the middle of an interview for the show and to give him a minute. Shota kept searching while he waited for Zashi to call back. He had looked in the pantry, in the gap between the fridge and the wall, the cabinet under the sink, everywhere that made sense in the kitchen. He thought he remembered Zashi going to the bedroom for the stool once, so he even searched there, under the bed, under the dresser, behind the dresser, in the closet, the bathroom, under the bathroom sink, and he still couldn't find it. Shota was not pouting by the time Zashi called him back. honest. "Hey, babe, what's up? You never call while I'm at the station." Shota huffed out an annoyed breath. "Where do you keep the stool? I can't find it anywhere. The bed in the guest room is too tall for Midoriya, and I don't want to bring in a chair." "Oh yeah, I keep it under the dresser in the bedroom," Zashi said easily. "I checked under the dresser. It's not there." "Yes, it is. I just used it last week." "Zashi, I'm in the bedroom right now, looking under the dresser, and it's not there." "Are you in our bedroom? Because I keep it in the guest bedroom." Shota growled at him and hung up. He'll send a thank you text after he gets the kids settled. He walked back to the guest room, where he'd left Midoriya, and paused when he saw him petting Shiro. "You're such a sweet little baby, aren't you?" he cooed to the cat. "Yes, you are." Shota couldn't help but smile at the scene, especially when Kuro slipped into the room to join his sister. "Oh, hello there," the kid exclaimed when he saw Kuro join them. "I can see why you said their names would be obvious," Midoriya said with a giggle, as Kuro shoved his sister aside to get at the new person's attention. "You're a little attention seeker, aren't you, Kuro?" Shota snorted. "Yeah, he is. But that one's Kuro. Shiro is." "Wait a second. You called him Kuro." Midoriya blinked up at him. "Yes. Did I get it wrong?" He tilted his head to the side. "After spending the day with you, I came to realize that you like misleading people, so I figured there was no way that you would name a black cat Kuro and a white cat Shiro, so you must have named the black one Shiro and the white one Kuro." This kid. Shota couldn't keep the insane grin off of his face if he tried. "Not even Nedzu realized that the first time he met the cats, but you did. Congrats, kid." He walked over to the dresser, ruffling the kid's head as he passed, and pulled the stool out from underneath. "Yeah, I found them under a dumpster one night while it was raining and brought them home. I'm assuming they're from the same litter." He unfolded the stool and placed it near the head of the bed. "You got their names perfectly, by the way, even my reasoning for naming them." Midoriya's smile was small, but brighter than anything he had ever seen from his sensei's face. "This is my kid now," he thought to himself before quickly backtracking. "No, he's already got a home. His parents are going to be worried about him. Speaking of parents, actually. Hey, kid, what's a good number to call your parents? I know Nedzu's going to explain everything when he gets back to your place, and I'm sure your parents will want to speak to you." Instantly, Midoriya's smile vanished. "My mom doesn't answer her phone normally, and she didn't take it with her this time." "What do you mean?" Shota asked. This was starting to sound a little bit like neglect. "Please say this isn't a case of neglect." When he didn't answer, Shota tried a different tactic. "How about this? We can put this off for a little while, and I can show you the rest of the apartment." Midoriya sighed in relief and nodded. "When will Yamada come home?" Shota blinked in surprise. "Zashi told you we were married. He usually lets me decide on if I'm going to tell someone or not." Well, no, he didn't," Midoriya interjected. "He's mentioned on his radio show a few times over the years that he was married, and I could still smell you once you left after lunch, so I thought—" Shota ruffled the kid's head again. "You thought right. We've been married for, almost 8 years now." "Oh, good," the kid grinned up at him. "With how strong the scent of you on him and him on you was, I was worried you might have been having an affair together if you weren't married." Shota couldn't help but snort at that. "Come on, kid. I'll show you around. Zashi should be home in about 2 hours." Midoriya nodded and followed Shota around the apartment as he showed him where the laundry room was. "Not like I expect you to be able to use the washer and dryer, as you are right now," and where Shota's bedroom was. "In case you need Zashi for anything tonight, I'll be going out on patrol about 2 hours after Zashi comes home." They settled in the front room shortly after, and Shota decided to wait for Zashi to get back home before broaching the subject of calling Midoriya's parents again. Instead, he decided they could watch a movie or something, and Midoriya picked out a documentary about the history of underground heroes. It's one the rat had him watch when he was deciding on going the route of underground when he was 15. It detailed the evolution of the old vigilantes from the dawn of quirks, and how society realized they were needed, and eventually incorporated into their own division of heroics. Not something Shota would expect out of a kid. But then again, Shota had to remind himself that this kid was a teenager. He kept forgetting because of how adorable he acted, and with Nedzu being so small, it just added to the perception of youth clinging to the kid. As they settled in to watch the show, Midoriya managed to work his way under Shota's arm, never once letting his attention waver from the television. Shota tightened his grip on the kid, but frowned. There were a few red flags that this kid's behavior were throwing up for Shota, and he didn't like what he was seeing. Becoming clingy, becoming withdrawn, depressed, or anxious, displaying obsessive behaviors, finding it hard to concentrate or take part in activities. These were just a few of the signs of neglect Shota had seen from this kid, and he's only known Midoriya for one day. Did he have more indicators? Only time would tell. Shota somehow managed to fall asleep while watching the documentary, and the sounds of Hisashi in the kitchen humming along to a song playing quietly on the radio woke him up. No, wait. That was the kid squirming to try to get up without waking him. Shota lifted his arm to release the kid, who gave him a sheepish grin and scurried into the kitchen to greet Hisashi. Grinning slightly to himself, Shota got up from the couch to give his husband his own greeting and ask how the interview had gone. Hisashi normally recorded his interviews days in advance of the show the interview would be used on, and while he'll tell Shota if it went well or not, he's never told Shota who the interview is with. He doesn't want to spoil the show after all. "Did you ask him my question?" Midoriya was sitting on the counter, clearly having Hisashi's help to get up there, with his tail swaying excitedly behind him and his feet kicking back and forth. "I did." Hisashi laughed. "He said he'd have to get back to me on that one, since he'd never thought to measure it." Shota could swear he saw little stars in the kid's eyes at that, and huffed out a laugh. "Oh, so you told him who your mystery interview was with," he joked as he walked up to Hisashi and kissed him on the cheek. "Of course I did," Hisashi replied with a wink. "He's cuter than you are." "Rude. Valid, but rude." Hisashi snorted at him. "Can you set the table, Sho? Dinner's almost done." Shota hummed an affirmation, and pulled out the plates and started setting them on the table. He heard Midoriya ask sadly if he had to eat raw meat again, to which Hisashi said yes to. He felt bad for the kid. Raw meat wasn't something anyone really should enjoy, and this kid was no exception. As the three sat at the table and started eating, Hisashi asked, "How are you doing, being in Nedzu's body? I can tell you've improved in your speaking a lot, even just since this afternoon." Midoriya grinned slightly at him. "Yeah, it was difficult at first, but I think I've gotten used to it, but—" He paused for a moment, unsure how to continue. I think the hardest part isn't the speaking or being so small. It's the vision." Shota and Hisashi glanced at each other in confusion. "The vision?" "Mm-hmm. I know that most animals supposedly don't see as well as humans, but I didn't think it'd be this much of a difference." "Senseis never seem to have weak vision," Hisashi mused aloud. With a snort, Shota added, "You really think he'd openly admit a weakness out loud, even to one of us?" I suppose that's true. Besides, we're not exactly the best people to judge eyesight from." Hisashi was extremely nearsighted, his glasses being required to enable him to see, whereas Shota's quirk naturally enhanced his vision to be almost twice as good as a normal person's. They had always assumed that their rat sensei had normal, regular vision. "Maybe I'll suggest to the rat that he should get glasses when I call him later tonight," Shota joked. Before Hisashi could reply any more than a snort, Midoriya spoke up. "Why do you call him a rat?" He looked down at himself. "I'm pretty sure he's either a mink or a stoat." Hisashi started giggling at that. "That's the same guess me and Sho came up with, but since Nedzu-sensei refuses to confirm or deny his species, Shota started referring to him as a rat, and Sensei won't correct him." Shrugging, Shota added, "If he doesn't want to be called a rat, then he needs to confirm or deny what species he is when a guess is made." Midoriya nodded, the explanation making sense to him. That's fair." Damn it. If this kid doesn't have a loving home, Shota is really going to keep him. He understands Shota and his sense of humor. "Hey, kid, after dinner, want to try to get a hold of your parents? I'm sure they're worried about you by now." It was as if a light had been snuffed out. The kid's expression darkened so fast. "No. My dad left when I was 4.
After. And my mom started drinking and going out more and more often.
In a whisper, he added,
She's sometimes gone for days, or even weeks at a time. She didn't bring her phone with her when she left this time.
Dibs, Shota mentally shouted. Clearly the kid's mom didn't want him, and here Shota was, actively wanting this kid. He looked up to Hisashi, trying to convey how much he wanted to keep this kid when he met his husband's identical look. Hisashi was giving him the puppy eyes, showing that he also wanted to keep the kid. When they realized they both had the same look, they turned back to Midoriya. Well, Midoriya, Hisashi started, you are welcome to stay here for as long as you want. Even once you're returned back to your own body, we'll keep a room open for you. Does that sound okay with you? The boy's entire face lit back up at that.
Really? Even though I'm...
Just as quickly as he lit up, he shut back down as he stopped himself from finishing his sentence, with his paws covering his mouth. Shota raised an eyebrow. Even though you're... what?
Quirkless,
he whispered so quietly, Shota almost didn't hear him. From the look Hisashi gave him, it had been too quiet for him, and he was counting on the context clues Shota would give him to understand and prevent having to ask Midoriya to repeat himself. Midoriya, can you look at me? Shota asked. When the boy had raised his eyes to meet Shota's, he continued. It doesn't matter to either one of us that you're quirkless. Yes, Zashi has a powerful quirk, but it's so strong it's more a hazard in the field than a benefit sometimes. And look at who he married. All my quirk does is neutralize the quirk of others. No one knows better than we do that a quirk is nothing more than a tool. Shota pushed himself back from the table a little and motioned for the kid to come over, and Midoriya quickly scampered onto his lap again and clung tightly to his shirt. You are a smart kid, Midoriya, and you being quirkless, that doesn't mean anything. Shota hugged the boy tightly. We will gladly take care of you whenever you need it, even if all you want is just to spend some time with us and have dinner. You will always be welcome here, understand? Midoriya nodded his head, and Shota was sure that if he could cry in the rat's body, he'd be crying. All right, listeners, this concludes part 3 of Someone to Protect Me. Part 4 will be up next. Make sure you drop your comments, thoughts, reactions below, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.